Welcome to Coffee Conversations. Today, we're going to be talking all about the concept of worthiness, touching on self-love and what it means to be enough. So we'll talk about things that will, oftentimes we see that people get into the mode of productivity and that's what they relate success to and worthiness to. We're going to just dive into all of it. So thank you so much for coming on, for listening, and for taking the time to be here, because we really want to help you understand your innate worthiness so that you can shine your light in the world. So welcome, welcome, welcome to the show.
Yes, we are so excited to have you guys listening or watching along. And I just have to say that this personally, I think this might be the coffee conversation that I'm the most excited about, because for me, this is a huge topic. And it's actually really timely because right about now when we're recording this, our Reiki coaching students are just about to move into solar plexus. And for those of you who are familiar with the chakras, solar plexus is all about personal identity and motivation and confidence and worthiness and all of these really in-depth topics that we're touching on today. But I always like to say that we're kind of in an epidemic of solar plexus imbalance. I think as a society, and even just in my own practice working with clients, I have yet to work with someone who doesn't have something going on in their solar plexus, because it's just such a key chakra for the times that we're in right now and the issues that we're facing and all of these things. And so as we go into this, I suspect there will probably be a lot of, oh my gosh, yeah, I feel like that, or I understand that, and I do that, because it really is this kind of chronic condition that we have something going on in our solar plexus. These concepts of self-worth and confidence and even self-love and self-care, like all of these things can be really difficult to approach because they're always tied to, I find these words like selfish and lazy and things like this, that where it's kind of a catch-22 of you can't explore yourself and have confidence without also seeming full of yourself, or you can't take time for yourself without also feeling selfish. And so it's this connection that I think we've kind of just grown into as a society and as a collective, and it's time to start stepping away from that and looking at it differently. And that's what today's talk is all about, and I'm really excited for it.
Yay. And I think in that, I oftentimes, okay, let me back up. Solar plexus is like my favorite chakra to talk about, because I feel like when we get to the topic, not only does everyone have something, everyone has that something that they still need to work on here, but when you can find balance there, that's when you are empowered. That is where you can stand up, be completely authentic yourself, and love yourself for the way you are, and shed all of those fears around judgment of others. And this is why I think it's so empowering, because when you come to that place, you can rock your world, whether that's your relationships or family life or your business or whatever it may be. It all comes down to your solar plexus of what identity do you hold, and can you step into an identity that's okay, not over just okay, but like fulfilling just to be yourself without any of the attachments to the world. Can you just be you? And what I often find in the Reiki community is that you have many empaths. And I love you all empaths. I'm an empath. Empaths typically will swing to the side of the low self-esteem or the low self-worth, primarily because they feel everyone's stuff all the time, and that they're people pleasers and they want to fix things because they can feel other people's energy. And so you have the pendulum that swings in solar plexus, whether it swings to the one side where it's like low self-esteem, more of the empath, more of the super sensitive, and then you swing to the other side where you have the narcissist, the ego driven, the over the top center of attention type person. And so in the middle of that is where you find balance and empowerment. And so I always see these two kind of come up. Like I was teaching a retreat, maybe, gosh, it was probably 5 years ago now, and it was based on the chakras. And when we got to solar plexus, I was describing it, and everyone could resonate with the empath, the lower self-esteem, like, how do I step into my authentic truth? And then we had the one individual, one participant who was like, well, what happens if you're on the other end? I go, oh, well, then this is where you're going to be more authentically, like, what are you taking on too much of? Like, where can you release like your ego in, like, where can you let go of the judgment of others and just be you? And so there's always, just as Izzy said, there's always seems to be more work here. And even if you do find your solar plexus pretty much in balance, there's still more, there's still always more to do. There's always like, how am I applying this information to different areas of my life? And in one area of my life, like say, like for me, business, I can really step into my authentic truth, but then there might be this little aspect that says, Christine, you're not a good writer. You're not, you suck. Just have Izzy do it. Right. And that is a part of my solar plexus that needs work, because I am a good writer if I apply myself and I take the time, but there's a part of my ego that doesn't want me to go there. It's that fear. And so that's what we're going to get into in this conversation, is where is fear showing up to make yourself feel small? And is that authentically, truly you and who you are?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, a few coffee conversations ago, we were talking about how anxiety shows up in all of the different chakras and just kind of anxiety in general. And I think for me, when I think about worthiness and confidence and all of these things, it's also kind of tied to anxiety. And I personally have a lot of experience with this. I have some pretty in-depth anxiety disorders. And so it's always really interesting to kind of start feeling into the energy of those differences when you're in an anxious mode or when you're in a confidence mode. And it really seems to be this difference of, is your energy constantly outside of you? Or are you focused on what other people think? Are you worried about what other people are judging you for? Are you worried what they're expecting? Or are you feeling like, on the other side of the spectrum, your word is gospel and everybody else is wrong and you're always right? And then it's this, especially this kind of softening towards, can you bring that attention back just to you? Can you just breathe and let yourself kind of release that anxiety? And it's not even swinging to the other side of, say you have an anxiety about, for Christine, it's, I'm not a good writer. It's worrying about, obviously she doesn't care if she's a good writer or not, because if it was just her, it wouldn't matter. But she's worried about how you guys are going to perceive her writing. So it's still worrying about what's happening outside of you, how other people are going to perceive you. And so it's that kind of flip, and it's moment to moment work that every time that comes up, you have to stop yourself and you have to say, does it actually matter what they think? And for our business owners, sometimes it does, but that's why then you look at, is this thought true? Am I actually a bad writer? And for Christine, that answer is no, I'm a great writer. I just have to do it. But if your answer is actually, yeah, you know what, writing's not my strong suit, that's when you hire somebody to do it for you. And then it finds that solution. So whether that solution is realizing this thought isn't true, it's not serving me, and it doesn't matter what people think anyway, or it's going, you know what, there is some truth in that thought, but I have a way to work with it. I can accept the situation and move toward a reality where this is not a strain, where does not cause anxiety, and I can find that solution. And then you kind of click into this place where you feel settled in yourself, because you're not worried about what other people are thinking. You're not focused on the judgment coming in from others. You're not worried about, does this shirt make me look big? Because you don't care, because it's your shirt and it makes you happy and you love it. And so it's this instead of an outward focus on what's happening, what other people are thinking, and especially those people that you make up in your head with all of their thoughts that are coming at you, it's about coming back and being, does it make me happy? Is it okay for me? Do I want to do this? And knowing that it's okay to say, I want to do it. I don't care if other people don't want me to, within reason, as long as it's not harmful. I want to do this. I want to sit on the couch and read a book right now. So I'm going to sit on the couch and read a book right now. Or I don't want to write this email. I'm going to give it to Izzy. Or I do want to, because I know I'm a good writer and I can do it if I apply myself. Finding that path where you're not playing the game for other people. You're not pandering to other people's opinions and the shoulds and the judgments, but you're really looking inward at yourself. What do I think? What do I want to do? And when you come across those thoughts that start to take you back out, asking yourself, is that true? Is that really what's happening? Does it really matter if that is what's happening? These little moments where you kind of pull at those strings that are holding everything together. And I think it's not about finding that one that's going to unravel the entire ball of yarn. It's constant teeny tiny threads, and eventually it starts to feel lighter and it starts to get better. But it's not a one size fits all magic wand. It's moment to moment work where you work on it every time it starts to come up and pull you out of yourself.
Right, right. And I think what Izzy is speaking to is the ego. You know, it's this ego that survives off of, what do other people think? How do I self-judge? And the ego, like as itself, isn't necessarily bad or wrong. Ego is there to help us survive. And historically speaking, we needed ego because we're social creatures and we needed to survive. And so having the ego go, well, what does that person think? And let's change our position to align ourselves with an ally so we don't go to war, or I don't get attacked, or whatever it is. So we're kind of wired to always be on high alert and to always consistently judge our surroundings about what other people think, because we are social creatures. And in the past, long ago, that's what we needed to survive. And in today's day and age, we're actually having to kind of rewrite the script. It doesn't matter if it's happiness. Like generations ago, we couldn't just be happy. There was always something that we had to watch out for, whether it was a famine or, just there are all these different kinds of things that we had to kind of just be always in survival mode. And part of our job, I believe, in this generation is to kind of rewrite what we allow, that we can rewrite the script of going, you know what, ego, I hear you and I'm going to survive this. If someone doesn't like what I write, I'm going to survive this and it's going to be okay. So that little negative self-talk, you can take the back seat. I'm going to be vulnerable. And that's what it comes down. I'm like hearing Breanne Brown, like coming through strongly, right? Like we need to be vulnerable to be able to live our authentic truth and really live our divine purpose. But in the past, hundreds of years ago, if we did that, if we became vulnerable, we most likely got ourselves killed, right? And so we're rewriting our generational script of going, we can be healthy, we can be happy, we can have fulfilling lives, and we can be vulnerable and not listen to the fear, because the fear is just trying to keep us to survive. Well, I don't want to survive, I want to thrive. And we live in a society that's held an institutionalized system of making sure that we do things the way we're supposed to do them, in quote marks, right? Like we're supposed to work a 9 to 5. We're supposed to be happy if we get overtime. We're supposed to be okay if we have to work a weekend every once in a while, or whatever it is. Like we've been kind of, the school system, our government system, all of these systems, our religious system have taught us how to stay in the box. And this is what's going to help you survive, is if you stay in the box. And here at the Reiki Cafe, we're always like, let's get rid of the box. Let's just chuck that box and go, well, if you lived your authentic life, your authentic truth, what would you be doing? And can you take that entrepreneurial spirit and say yes to that? And what parts of you are freaking out, screaming, no, we can't do that. That's the ego. That's the, I'm trying to make you survive. And so we're not going to try.
Right. Well, and I think too, it's this difference between, like Christine said, the ego is really, it's a tool. It can be incredibly helpful. It's like a calculator versus a pen. Sometimes you need the calculator to be able to do the equations and plan your budget and all of the things, but sometimes you need the pen to create something new. And so your ego is really like that calculator. It takes in what it sees and it formulates a, is this safe? Yes or no checkbox. And that's kind of how your ego sees everything. Is this going to serve me? Is it safe? Yes or no? And a lot of times its perceptions are actually really inaccurate, because all your ego can do is build on what you have in the past. So if you have experiences from the past, whether it's from past generations or just past years in your own life, let alone past lives, those past experiences filter through your ego, through that kind of data collector, and become the framework, the blueprint for how you perceive all future interactions, even if they're not actually similar. If your ego says, you know what, this is bad, this is dangerous, this is wrong, it goes into that category, and that's where it stays until you start to do that work to unravel it. And so it's about understanding that the ego and its perceptions are just that, it's a perception. It's not necessarily the reality of what you're experiencing. It's a perception. It's like if you go into a house of mirrors and everywhere you look, there's a slightly different angle of you, but really you're the only you. All of the mirrors are just reflecting different facets of you. That's how the world works. Your ego is one facet, and the egos of everyone around you are all the different facets. No one can actually see you in the fullness of you except you, not ego you, but soulful embodied you, because you are the only one who is living that reality. Everyone else is just seeing a reflection, a perception of what's happening, and it's not actually the whole truth. And so it's understanding that difference between using the ego as a tool of, is this objectively, like I said earlier, true? Is it going to hurt me? Is it harming me? Or is it serving me? Is it beneficial? Versus taking it as, this is the reality. My ego says it's bad, it has to be bad. It's that difference between putting all of your weight in your ego and saying it knows everything and it's absolutely right, versus, is it just a facet of what's happening? It's just a perception. It's just a thought. That's oftentimes something that I say. And when I'm working through these things of self-worth, and those thoughts start to come up of, you know, what if they think I'm bad, or what if I'm selfish, or what if I'm lazy, or whatever these thoughts are. For me, it's about raising my standards and lowering my expectations. And what I mean by that is it's my mantra now. It's raise your standards and lower your expectations, because your ego is going to say, let's say with Christine and her writing example, the ego is going to say it has to be absolutely perfect. And it doesn't matter if I don't eat today trying to get it done, I have to get it done so it's perfect. So your expectations are way up here saying it has to be absolutely perfect and flawless. And your standards for what you accept yourself are way down here saying it doesn't matter if I eat, it doesn't matter if I sleep, it doesn't matter if it takes 5 hours, I just have to get it done so it's perfect. Versus if you switch that, if you can lower your expectations and say, it's okay if I make a mistake, it's okay if it's not flawless, it's okay if I live on this human level, and raise your standards of, I am worthy enough to eat lunch today. I am worthy enough to put an hour of work into this, and then say, you know what, it's good enough. So it's about raising your standards of what you will accept for yourself, what you are willing to put yourself through, and what you are willing to receive for yourself, versus lowering your expectations and saying, it's okay if it's not perfect. It's okay to make a mistake, and it's okay to say, I'm going to live at this lower level. And it's not letting yourself down. It's not agreeing to be mediocre for the rest of your life, but it's bringing that ego back in check. It's saying this expectation is not a reality. It's a reflection, a perception, and a projection of what could be, but it doesn't have to be that way. That's just your ego saying it has to be perfect. So can you bring that back in check, and then up that soulful part of yourself that says, I do deserve love, I do deserve care, and I'm worthy of receiving all of it. So it's whether you look at it as raising your standards and lowering your expectations, or you look at it as keeping your ego in check and tuning into your soul and your intuition, it's the same thing. But it's about taking this kind of scale that we have as a society right now of have to do all the things all the time, be productive, perfect, 100% all the time. And doesn't matter if you don't sleep, doesn't matter if you don't eat, as long as you get things done, you're doing good. And switching that, rewriting that script, like Christine said, and letting it come back into balance is so important, but it's also so difficult because we have been trained to focus on what other people think and how other people are perceiving us. And we have been trained to be able to pick up on all of those different perceptions that are constantly coming at us and take them into our data bank and say, this must be how I am because I'm just one person. If all of these people are around me seeing something else and I'm seeing something different than they are, then I must be wrong. So we've been trained to take all of that in and kind of encapsulate it and embody it. And now it's time to start switching from that, because we don't need it anymore for survival. We don't need it to be safe. We are in this time where we really are allowed to start exploring ourselves. We're allowed to start stepping out of that box and finding, what do I want, knowing that I'm worthy for that, and stepping into that more embodied place instead of that sporadic energy that we were talking about earlier. And for me, that's been my mantra, is raise your standards and lower your expectations and know that it's okay.
Yes, 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 yes. And I think this is where self-sabotage easily enters the room, right? And so I could say, for example, why even try writing? Why even do it? Because I know I'm not good enough. I'm not going to be as good of a writer as Izzy or whoever else. So why even try? When in actuality, if I would put myself out there and got the practice in and kept doing it, lowering my lowering my expectations and bringing up my standards of myself, then I enter in a space where I can happen. And so when we look at self-sabotage, why do we do self-sabotage? Let's say we're in a great relationship, but your individual doesn't feel worthy of that love. You don't believe that you're worthy of self-love. You're going to do things in that relationship to prove your ego right. See, he didn't love me enough or whatever. It's that judgment exterior that you will self-sabotage to prove your ego right, to continue yourself in your own self-sabotaging behaviors. And when self-sabotage breaks apart, when it stops happening, is when you say, I'm worthy of the love. And I think that's the root of most self-sabotage, is this lack of self-love, this lack of self-worth. And when we can get there and know I'm innately worthy, I was born and I'm here on this earth at this specific time, and therefore I'm worthy. Or even I've received this divine inspiration, and therefore it was God given to me, and therefore it is worthy to come into manifestation. Therefore I'm worthy to take the time to work on it, even if it flips everything on its head and I change my priorities. So I make sure that I give it attention and I take that divine of right action, right? Like we move forward with it. And so we really want to look at why are we self-sabotaging? Why do we take the actions that we do? And are we coming to a place of knowing our innate worthiness and our innate self-love?
Right. And I love what you said about I am on earth at this time, or if I have that divine inspiration, I am worthy to receive these things and to follow them, because I think that's something that is so important, because no matter how you look at it or what you believe in, whether it's God or spirit or source or universe or any higher power that you believe in, even if it's just your soul and your higher self, that source that decided you as a person with all of your opinions and beliefs and preferences and hobbies and talents and all of these things, the world needed you. That was decided by whoever or whatever you believe your higher source to be. I think we can all agree that there was an element at some point in time that said, this human needs to be on earth right now. Earth needs this person. And I think we do ourselves a disservice when we start trying to think about, what will other people think? Or should I be doing this? Should I not be doing this? Maybe I'm stepping out of bounds here, or I need to be productive all the time, or I need to constantly be doing something in order to be worthy. All of these thoughts that I think a lot of people can relate to. The way that I look at it is we're actually doing ourselves a great disservice, because anybody can do a job. Anybody can clean the kitchen. Anybody can write an email. Anybody can be an accountant. Obviously, you would need training and et cetera, et cetera. But at the core of it, anybody can do a job. Anybody can be trained to do a job, but nobody can be you except you. Nobody can draw or think or speak or be or act or do anything the way that you can. And so when we take time and we start exploring our hobbies and we start exploring the things that light us up and we start wearing the clothes that make us happy and doing the things that feel good to us, that's when we're actually honoring being a human on earth. That's when we're honoring that fact that we were chosen to be here, us as people, with everything that that entails, versus when we start focusing on, I have to do things. I have to be productive. I have to get this job done. I have to clean, even if I don't have to clean, but it makes me more worthy if I do it. These things, we're starting to push ourselves into this gray area, this monotone kind of machine-like structure of I'm just constantly being productive and it's all about the output. And I think whether that is output of constantly caring for the people around you, or that's actually working overtime at your job, whatever that looks like for you, it's again going back to that. Are you spending your energy playing the game for someone else? Are you spending your energy worrying about other people? And if you are, then you're taking away from all of the things that make you uniquely you. It's not your job that makes you uniquely you. It's not how well you clean the kitchen or how often you take care of your kids. Those aren't the things that make you you. What makes you you is how you think about it and how you feel about it, and what lights you up and what your hobbies are and how you choose to spend your free time and the clothes that you wear and your favorite colors and your favorite songs and all of these really rich and beautiful things that you can't explore if you're constantly worried about being productive and doing enough for other people. So it kind of comes down to that idea of, who are you going to honor? The perceived perceptions of the people around you, or that idea that the higher power decided the world needs you, not your job, but you, who you are as a human? And are you going to take those moments to cultivate yourself, to step into yourself, and to honor that gift and that blessing of being here and being chosen to be you in this time? Or are you going to worry about, well, what if other people think who I am is weird? What if I'm not enough? What if I'm not lovable? What if? What are other people going to think? Which one are you going to lean into? And I say it like it's an easy choice. It's not. And I don't want to be flippant about it, because it's difficult. And it is, like I said earlier, that moment to moment work, because these things, even if they can seem small from the outside, they cause big waves of emotion. Because when you get to these core beliefs, like I'm not worthy, I'm not lovable, I'm not enough, those are really deeply held beliefs that impact all of the areas of your life. And so when you start to question them, it can hurt and it can be hard, but it is so much more worth it to go through that phase of questioning and saying, you know what, I am worthy, even if you don't believe it at the time, but just telling yourself over and over and over again, I am worthy. And right now I'm going to read a book instead of doing the dishwasher, because I, as a human, want to read a book. The people in my head who expect me to clean my kitchen want me to do my dishwasher. But you know what? If I don't, it will be okay. It does not matter if they think I am lazy for reading a book, because that is just their perception of me. It is not the reality of me. Only I can know the reality of my experiences and what I needed in this moment. Only me. Everybody else is just a perception. And a lot of times, as we all know, our perceptions of other people are heavily colored by our perceptions of ourselves. So chances are, if someone is thinking that you're lazy for reading a book, it's because they'd really like to be reading a book too, but they don't think they're worthy. And so they look at you and they say, oh, how could she? Because they're too scared to do it themselves. So it's always realizing that you have the choice. You can honor yourself and you can honor that higher power, that chance to be fully you in this moment. Or you can honor the people that are in your head that are just perceiving you through their own perceptions of themselves, who are only seeing you through their own fear and who can only see a reflection instead of the reality. And coming back to that choice, knowing that you have that choice in every single moment, is how you start to unravel that chain. It's just moment to moment to moment, making that choice.
Oh, I love it. And I feel like it could go in like 5 different directions right from this. And I kind of want to add in, really understanding what your zone of genius is. Like, that is a term coined by Gay Hendricks of The Big Leap. And it really kind of goes to, we have come in with our own zone of genius, what excites us, what lights us up. And when we can stay inside our zone of genius, some people will call this the vortex, some people will call this their zone of magic. Like, it's when everything seems to flow. Everything seems to be in motion in a gentle way, and perhaps a little rushing, but you're ecstatic. And I love that word. I love being ecstatic. I love inspiring others to find their ecstatic space of what lights them up, what gets them going. And when you stay in that space, whether you have a 9 to 5, even there's something that should be in your job that has driven you to that point of accepting the job beyond the dollar bill, right? The thing that's like, oh, I love walking around the office and talking to my coworkers. Or if you're a nurse, that you love actually sitting and caring for your patient, whatever it may be, there's something that's lighting you up to do that thing. And when you're in your zone of magic, when you're in that zone of genius, you could do it all day long and not get tired. And that's how you really know if that's your zone of genius, because you're authentically you. No one could tell you otherwise. No one could say, oh, you're not very good at that, because you would look at them and be like, are you crazy? I love what I'm doing. Like, this is exactly how it should be done. You are so embodied in that positivity of knowing that you're worthy of the work that you're doing because you're in your zone, right? And so when we come out of that, that's when ego really starts to step forward, right? If we're in our zone of excellence, we can take the naysayers, we can take the doubters, and we kind of second guess ourselves. If we're in our zone of competence, yeah, I can do this, but I'm not very good at it. Oh yeah, now we're really listening to the judgment of others. And then there's a zone of incompetence. And that zone of incompetence is like, you should not even be trying to do this because this is not your area of expertise. Like it would be like me trying to do my own taxes, right? Like I have no area of expertise in taxes. However, I know there are people out there who love the numbers, who love doing taxes. And that's the type of person I want to hire to do my taxes. I want the person who's in their zone of genius to do my taxes. So what my point is like everyone has their zone. And if we can find the people who all are working within their zone of genius, then you make this magic, because everyone's doing their passion and everyone's working in their purpose. And from that point, everyone feels good because they know that they're worthy to do this work. And so when we come to that place, it feels really good. But how the hell do we get there? Right? And so this is the steps. It is saying to first recognize it. Recognize when you're in your zone of genius, not just your zone of excellence. Like, I'm freaking good at this, but I get exhausted after a few hours of doing it, right? So really starting to have that awareness. I always say, people have heard this 100 times from me, healing starts with awareness. We have to have that awareness first. Where's your zone of genius, and what is just I'm good at, or I'm comfortable at, or I'm not so good at, I'm wasting my time. So when we can step into our zone of genius, when this is what really lights us up, then we can start to distinguish between these different zones. We can have that awareness there. And then when we have the awareness, we can start making a choice to be in our zone of genius more often, and to recognize what activities helps us get into our zone of genius. So when we make those things a priority, like I know that if I sit down and meditate for even 10 minutes, I am more likely going to be in my zone of genius following that time. And so we can figure out what is the gateway, what's the connectors into your zone of genius. And when you can figure that out, then you're like, well, why? Like, for example, I'm gonna give you another me example because those are easy, right? I have come from a rush type mentality. I was totally type A. I was totally production driven. Everything needed a perfect. I was always exhausted. When I threw that paradigm out the window, life got easier, because I said, you know what? I can have the house functioning and, all the food on the table, and make these yummy meals, and basically people pleasing. I'm going to fix everyone else's stuff. Or I can, instead of rushing out the door in the morning, I can meditate, I can exercise, I can do my affirmations, I can do the things that feel good to me, and then start my day and put responsibility on the other members in the family to take care of themselves, so that they also learn how to find their zone of genius. So if that is my 8-year-old, well, she's 9 now, if she can make her own breakfast in the morning, I'm empowering her, rather than going, that's the mommy's duty. Well, when I know that if I start out my day with meditation, and then she can see that where my priorities have been, going, I'm not neglecting you. I'm prioritizing my self-care and my self-love and my self-worth. And I'm giving you the invitation to do the same. So in that way, she can come join me. She knows she can come join me at any time, and she'll be participating in the things that I participate in. And that when I feel satisfied in my own alignment for the day, then I'm happy to meet her needs. And she gets to witness that, and how that dynamic has significantly shifted our family's stress, overall stress, and have invited collaboration in the family, so that everyone is more self-responsible, so that we can each live from our zone of genius. And it just starts to flow.
Yeah, well, and notice too that that falls right in line with raising your standards and lowering your expectations. It's lowering that expectation of I have to have everybody's breakfast perfectly prepared before they go out the door at the sacrifice of my own well-being and my own happiness and my own minute of peace in the morning versus I'm worthy to do my meditation and exercise because I know that it will set me up for a good day. And it's okay if they have to make their own breakfast because it also falls in line with not only that personal sense of raising your standards and lowering your expectations, but for me, a lot of self-worth and self-confidence also comes down to this idea of permission. And I always say that we're always waiting for other people to give us permission to do something, whether that's someone to say, oh, you don't have to do the dishwasher. I don't know why the dishwasher is such a heavy example in my mind today, but that's what we're going with. Whether it's someone actually saying you don't have to do that, or it's someone living their fullest truth that you can say, well, if they can do it, why can't I? We're constantly waiting for someone to tell us that who we are is okay, that what we want to do is okay, that what we think and feel and all of these things is okay. And it's okay to feel that way. And it's like we kind of sit on eggshells and we are tense in ourselves until we feel like we have that permission. And it's like, oh, you mean that what I'm experiencing is okay? Then I'll let myself experience it. So it's like we hold ourselves back and again constantly play the game for other people of what do they think, because we're so worried that what we think isn't enough, that what we think is wrong, that what we think isn't okay. And so when you start to acknowledge this idea of we're all just waiting for someone to tell us it's okay, to give us permission to be ourselves, when you look at that idea of raising your standards and lowering your expectations, not only are you giving yourself that permission, but you're also giving others permission. So even though it might look like, to some people who have that same kind of emotional sensitivity, they might look at Christine's example of not making her daughter breakfast and meditating instead. They might look at that and say, oh, she's so selfish. But it's like, when you look at it, no, what she's doing is she's giving herself permission to take care of herself, but she's also giving her daughter permission of what do you want for breakfast, knowing that you have the power and the choice to make your own breakfast, giving herself that empowerment and that sense of responsibility for herself, so that then again, she's not thinking, what's mom going to make me for breakfast? Already that outward focus, it's what do I want for breakfast? I'm going to make it and I'm going to feel empowered as I do so. So not only is she empowering herself, but she's giving others permission to be empowered. And it all falls in this really beautiful flow of that sense of what Christine said, of choice, of when you start this, whether it's just starting to undo those anxious thoughts and undo those egoic expectations and bring them down, or it's starting to find your zone of genius, or it's starting to find what I call your alignment, where all of these pieces just kind of click into place. It's those moment to moment choices and understanding that it's not going to happen all at once. And that's okay. It's not like you're going to wake up tomorrow and be like, I am worthy. Probably not going to happen that way. If it does, that's fantastic. But again, lower your expectations. It might take months. It might take years. It might take a long time. It might take a day. I don't know. Only you know what your journey will look like, but understanding that it's okay, that it's that moment where you feel that spark. Maybe you're sitting down to drink a cup of tea and you feel that spark and you just notice and you say, this is good. And you look for that spark more and more in your day and you let that naturally flow. And the other thing I think about the zone of genius that comes to my mind, especially, is understanding that your zone may not always be the same. I think that I've probably had 5 or 6 different zones of genius, and I'm only 21. Like it shifts and it changes all the time. And when we start to hold ourselves to the person that we used to be, or the person that we think we should be, those are both different versions of holding ourselves back. And they can be different versions of self-sabotage, of I used to think that, or I should think this, whether you're looking to the past or the future. Anytime you're pulling yourself away from your current present self, that's when you start to hold yourself back. And so it's about every moment coming back and saying, maybe this gave me joy yesterday. Maybe this was my zone of genius yesterday, but is it my zone of genius today? Is this what lights me up today? And if it's not, that's okay. Letting yourself flow through the journey. And again, lowering your expectations and raising your standards so that you're willing to search for that spark. You're willing to find your zone, and then you're willing to take the action steps to stay in it so that maybe one day it's your entire life is in that zone. But knowing that if it's not there yet, if it takes a while, if it's just 1 second of that spark every day, that's enough. And it's just chasing those sparks that is the joy of the journey. It's like catching lightning bugs when you're little. it wasn't about how many lightning bugs you could get unless you have a sibling and you were in a competition, but it was about chasing that lightning bug and then finding the next one and the next one and the next one. And so it's that same way with life, of finding those little sparks throughout your day.
Absolutely. I love it. And, I think I want to just bring welcome in even more awareness, right? So finding those sparks is such a key. It's such a tool. And the more you get to stay in them, that's fantastic. But if you're struggling finding those sparks, if you're lower than the possibility of sparks are available, then we need to start looking at the nervous system, because I think so many people have been traumatized or are living in a state of, you're on that nervous system burnout, so often found in our culture and our society. Then we really need to look at why is your nervous system burnt out, and how can we help it relax? So we often hear fight or flight, but there's also freeze or fawn. And getting really curious about, are you in one of these states? Are you fighting? This is often the narcissist who, the egoic person who's trying to prove themselves and push other people around, and they may be a little bullying. They're doing it for a reason. So then it's like, well, why are they fighting? Their nervous system is on edge because they're fighting. So giving them a safe container of bringing it back down can help them. Then you have the flight. I'm running away from the danger. Well, is there a danger? Are you ignoring? Are you pushing aside the things that you want to work on because you're fleeing from the situation? And is there an actual danger there? Or is it just that your ego is afraid of judgment? Okay. And then you have freeze and fawn. So freeze is I'm just going to stay and I'm not going to do anything. And my mouth doesn't work because I'm terrified. And so you're frozen in place. And noticing, are you frozen? Are you just not doing anything? Whether that's, I'm on the couch zoning out on television. Am I just frozen in time because I don't want the judgment from others? Is there a danger? Is there actually something coming at you? And going, if no, how can I move the energy so that I can move out of freeze? How can I move out of freeze? And then if you're fawning is the people pleasing. Fawning is trying to make sure everyone is okay and bending your personality to everyone, what you want everyone else to see you as, because you don't want them to attack you. And so is that what's going on? Are you people pleasing because there is a threat? Someone is going to emotionally or physically abuse you? Or is that just something that you grew up with? Maybe that was your mom's relationship with her husband, and therefore, or boyfriend or whoever, and that's where you learned it. And so now you have become a people pleaser, but the threat's not there. So this is why I'm always going, awareness is so key, because when we can explore and get curious, and that's really where it is. And this is what I love about Reiki coaching, is that it's a safe place to get curious. When we can get curious of, why do we do these things? For what purpose? What's going on here? What actions do I take that show up in which of these categories? Is my nervous system burnt out and I need to give myself some time and space to do some healing? And how can I regulate my nervous system? Because oftentimes, if our nervous system is out of whack, it doesn't matter if I feel like I am a child of God and I'm worthy to be here. But if my nervous system is out of whack, I can't even conceptualize that of my own self-worth, because I'm in such a fear state. My adrenal glands are burnt out, whatever it may be. And so this is an invitation to explore, get curious, and feel like Izzy and I are both offer Reiki coaching sessions. Like if you want to dive deeper, we're here for you to do just that. And it is all about exploring those shadows. And why do they show up? And how can we support them coming back into balance so that we can find that center and solar plexus of saying, I am worthy of love. I'm worthy to do the things that I enjoy. And I'm worthy to say no. I'm worthy to say no to the experiences that don't serve me. And how does that relate to where you are in your life?
Right. Absolutely. And I think, like Christine said, it's if you are struggling to find that path, or if you're ready to take the next step, or if you feel like you want support on that journey, know that we're here. We both offer sessions, but I also think there's importance in having that solidarity of knowing that you're not alone. So knowing that both Christine and myself, I know, have trauma in our histories, and we have experiences with extremely low self-worth and anxiety and limiting beliefs and all of these things. And even what Christine was speaking to here with the nervous system, I can actually speak to that very personally. My nervous system was so bad a few years ago that my adrenals completely failed and some of my organs started to shut down. So I understand that part of the journey and those paths, and we both understand how intense it can be in all of the different stages of everything that we've talked about today. So whether you're looking for someone to have a session with you and help you find your own path, or you just need a friend who understands what you're going through, know that Christine and I are both here to hold that space and to help lift you up and to help you feel like you are where you're supposed to be, because we truly believe that you are always.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining the conversation. We really would love to see a world where everyone is living in their zone of magic, that their collaborations and the interplay between the Reiki community and the other spiritual endeavors and the medical community, like if we are all living at a place of our authentic selves, I really do believe that this could be a very beautiful world if we stop living in survival mode and start living in thriving mode. And we just put a cap on that negative self-talk and know that we are here. We're here to do our piece of the magic. And that life can be at least easier, if not, in flow. It can be easier. So if you are struggling, know that we're here to support you, and that we are so grateful that you came to this conversation. If you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe. We love that.
Yeah, thank you. Have a wonderful day, evening, week, all of the things, and we will see you next time.